Hello and welcome to Episode 2, Season 1 of the Deep Thought series. I'm your host, John Davidson, also the writer and the narrator. This is an ever-evolving series for my current clients, former clients, maybe future clients. So if you're looking for information here on YouTube from a career coach, career counselor, a resume writer, you might have found the right place. And so this is a new series that I started just late last year, 2023, and my plan is to keep it rocking and rolling throughout 2024. And so it's a bit of a lo-fi approach to expanding on some of my favorite article topics or different ideas clients have thrown at me. And so I hope you like the series. Feel free to reach out to me, put some comments in there. If it's interesting or informative, feel free to like. Feel free to subscribe as well. And so this series is a new take where I've now come back to YouTube after a bit of a hiatus. I was on Skillshare for a while, had a lot of fun with that. And my core idea here is to take some of my articles or session topics, dive in a little bit deeper in a relaxed fashion. So yes, there will be music. It's a little bit of an unplugged approach, and so I hope these videos are somewhat calming. A lot of folks tell me they listen to YouTube videos towards the end of the day, late at night, and so hopefully you find these interesting, entertaining, maybe even both. So I'll dive right in. A couple of disclaimers, and so I'll put this into probably all of the videos. So I'm likely not your career coach. Part of the reason I built these is to have a bit of a sounding board for myself and to provide kind of some generalized information, but it's not particularly specific to my clients or any one particular group. So take them with a grain of salt. And as always, this is to the best of my knowledge as of January 2024. Of course, Happy New Year, everyone. Check your sources. Feel free to take a look at my qualifications and credentials and background if you like, either on my website or YouTube. I won't bore you with the details here. And so recently I did an article on corporate speak, and I put it on my YouTube, on my LinkedIn profile before I put it here on YouTube. And the idea is we really do live in this evolving world of language. Especially since the pandemic, 2020, and now here it is, 2024, some days feels like we're speaking a different language. And I'm constantly working with clients to help translate their experience and their capabilities, or decode job descriptions, try to figure out what they're really all about. So I'm always in this tug of war with the English language, this mongrel dog of a language. Even though I've studied several other languages, I don't even know if I've mastered English at this point. But absolutely feel free if you go to Medium or my LinkedIn profile. I wrote a full-blown article, and I mapped out some words and phrases that, in my opinion, most of these didn't even exist before the pandemic. Some did, certainly, but maybe have taken on new meaning, or they really are a sign of our times. And so I thought a few of these were really interesting. I'll read through a few. And so I don't mean to poke fun at any of these phrases in any way, but I think there's a little bit of humor to be found in some of the phraseology we find ourselves using these days. And so I'll dig in. These are alphabetical. And again, lots of them on the article. I think I have 40 some in there. Immediately after I published it, there were some that I thought I should add, so maybe I'll do an addendum or a special edition or something. But 996 is a phrase I had heard before the pandemic, but I think especially in the tech realm, we hear about like hardcore work culture that got really popular when Elon Musk took over Twitter, or X, or whatever the heck they want to call themselves. But you could say that this concept has existed for a while, this 996 idea, that imagine you have a job where you work 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. And I've had some tough jobs that required overtime and extra candle power, but I don't think I've ever had a job that truly required 996 mentality. So maybe that's really where we're at. There's this thought process where if you work a job and you're paid really well, can an employer reasonably ask you to work those extra hours? Or if you're in crunch mode, say you work at a tech company or maybe like a video game company where you need to get a product out or an alpha test or a beta test out, is it reasonable to ask people to bring a sleeping bag to work or put in those hours? So really interesting question. I think 996 pushes a little too far, and chances are if you have a 996 work schedule, you may want to think about hiring a career coach of some kind of thing. This is a phrase that I really heard only last year, 2023, so maybe I just didn't pick up on it before then. Coffee badging. And so we have so many companies, especially private sector companies, larger companies, Amazon's a good example, where they've asked folks to RTO, return to office. We had WFM, work from home, and so lots of companies have this office space, whether it's headquarters or in an office park somewhere, and are reasonably asking employees to come back to the office more so to collaborate. And so this is the idea where you just kind of show up, you swipe your badge, grab a cup of coffee, and get the heck out. Coffee badging, maybe a way to kind of do an end run around RTO. So I think that one's kind of funny. I'm also a coffee drinker, so why not? Maybe I've done that in previous jobs, but it's kind of somewhere between not going in or quitting and just kind of putting in the effort. So it'd be kind of interesting to see where that goes in 2024. A lot of tech layoffs last year, 2023, and we're seeing some industries get hit hard even this first month of 2024. So my heart does go out to folks who suddenly find themselves having to go back to the office, kind of thing. But another phrase that especially started to pop up in the pandemic era and now after, this idea of a ghost job. And obviously I'm well aware that there is a new Ghostbusters film coming out, which looks pretty good. But this idea that if you see a job description on Indeed or Glassdoor maybe, or LinkedIn or wherever you look for jobs, that it may in fact be a ghost job. It may not be a job that is funded, or maybe they do want to hire somebody and yet they don't really intend to hire someone for weeks or months after the fact, and they're maybe building a bench of talent. And I've seen clients run into this where it really does turn out that maybe that job wasn't so actionable at the moment. Now, it's possible if it is a job busting ghosts, that's a ghost job. I don't think we disagree with that, but there are some markers to look for. So, for example, if you see a job advertised, can you find it on LinkedIn? Can you find it somewhere else besides the company's website? As in, did that organization spend the money and the time to post that job elsewhere? How serious are they in terms of really staffing that role compared to your seriousness as a job seeker, as a candidate? And so I'm not a big fan of ghost jobs or posting jobs for the sake of posting it, just to develop a bench of talent. So I have my own opinions and biases when I see some of these phrases or what I think they mean, but be on the lookout. BOLO, be on the lookout. And so here's another one that I think, especially since the concept of remote work started to really take off, and you could say that was maybe 2015, 2016, 2017, remote roles became more common. This idea that somebody could be overemployed. And I'm kind of fascinated by this because you could make a really good argument that if you have a job and you can legitimately handle a second job or a third job, what's the harm? If you are that kind of rock star who can legitimately handle handle 2 or 3 jobs, maybe more, simultaneously. And I'm one of those folks who thinks this isn't necessarily a bad thing. If you've got a really bright, amazing human working for you at your organization or on your team, is it really anybody's business if they have a side hustle or a second main hustle, as long as they're still rocking and rolling? So it's a really interesting debate, this concept of overemployed. And you could say more humans than ever have a side hustle or have a sub-main hustle to kind of supplement what they're doing. So I think that's fascinating. More folks than ever, it seems, have their own website, or they might want to get into e-commerce or sell something or take their creativity in a direction where it generates income. So I don't think this is necessarily always a bad thing, but something to be concerned about where, let's say you're looking at a job offer, there may be a clause in there that perhaps restricts what you do in your own time, or maybe wants to somewhat handcuff you to just one full-time job. So be careful. Interesting idea. And so, it's kind of in jest. Maybe the key here really is to not get caught and just work as many jobs as you can. So if you rock it like that. So all you rock stars out there, keep being rock stars in that way. And this one has gotten really popular. So my guess is probably most of you viewers have heard of these words or phrases. I mean, maybe in the New York Times or Wall Street Journal or your favorite papers or YouTube channels or whatnot. But this idea of quiet quitting, in my opinion, is an extension of, you could say, putting in your notice effectively. And so this idea that maybe we start to put in a little bit less effort if we're in a job where we're not appreciated as much as we could be or should be. Or maybe we see some of the writing on the wall, as in, if I'm an employee and I see that folks are being let go, or there's a merger coming up, or maybe products aren't getting launched, then maybe that might impact my desire and my work ethic. And in my opinion, that may not be necessarily a bad thing, to kind of reset expectations. Or if someone's passed over for a promotion, or if, let's say, you work somewhere and you don't really get regular raises, or there isn't much of an awards culture, is it wrong to start using some of your PTO to interview elsewhere, for example, and kind of watch your own back? So to an extent, again, not that I'm making light of this, instead of just quitting or lighting your desk on fire, maybe quiet quitting may not be such a bad thing. Maybe shifting down a little bit and reevaluating some of your options, or maybe even looking internally. If you're currently employed, maybe you should be on a different team or in a different department or business unit. So often I work with folks who really don't want to stay with a current employer, and that exploration might lead even outside of their industry or out of their field. Fantastic. So I think there are some negative connotations with quiet quitting, as in managers might say, gosh, that person seems to be giving up or just slowly pushing themselves out. But like in my note there, I mean, if you have a coworker or if you have someone on your team and it seems like their motivation's taken a hit, a cup of coffee or a conversation might not be a bad idea. So they may not be quiet quitting per se. So, all right. And next up, we've got rage applying. And I don't think this is more than a few years old, but this is, you could say, a theme that's been around for quite a while. And this kind of concept that you're so fed up, you're mad as hell, and you're not going to take it anymore. Great film, Network, classic movie. That people get fed up with their boss or with their corporate culture or with their team or all of the above, or they're not getting paid what they're worth. So they apply to a whole bunch of jobs. They go on Monster or Career Builder or LinkedIn and hit that apply button or that easy apply button and tap, tap, tap. So in kind of my jestful way of saying it, just applying to a boatload of jobs in response to maybe some real issues. And so again, rage applying, on a certain level, I think there's a bit of healthiness in that. You could make a really good argument that most Americans don't have a lot of job security and may not have an employment contract and might be terminable at will. So is it wrong to go on a job interview once in a while just because, to stay sharp? Whether you are so fed up you want to quit and just fire off a bunch of applications, or whether you want to just dip your toe in the water. So again, I think maybe there's some negative connotations with this, and I've heard some flack on LinkedIn, for example, where a job might have an easy apply function and recruiters might just get bombarded by different a whole bunch of applications, as if that's a bad thing. So there we go. And Riz, maybe my favorite one of the list. Officially, no joke, the Oxford 2023 Word of the Year was Riz, as in charisma. I've heard some different things about whether it's actually based on Riz from charisma or there's a different source, but that seems to be the main opinion there. But in all seriousness, I don't think Riz belongs on anybody's resume necessarily. Maybe it does. You can just make it your middle name. So I'm seriously considering just being John Riz Davidson. There you go. But you know what? I don't have a middle name anyway, so maybe I just need to get something on the books. But I will put in a pitch for Riz being a much better word of the year than Goblin Mode, which I'd actually looked it up. I'd completely forgotten that was the phrase of 2022. Goblin Mode. I don't think that belongs on the resume either, but hey, maybe put them on your LinkedIn skills index. There you go. Have fun with that. Go Riz. All right, we're into the S's. And this one is, on a certain level, no joke here, because super commuting, and I've worked with folks who quite literally relocated, either before, during, or after the pandemic to more of a rural location. Let's say I'm originally from Spokane, so a lot of folks had a job and they wanted to move away from corporate headquarters and maybe go to Bend, Oregon, or Lewiston, Idaho, kind of small, arguably more livable cities. And then return to office comes back into play, RTO. And so now the challenge is, do you have to go back into the office once a week or every other week? And not to turn it into a Jeff Foxworthy joke, but if your commute involves a train ticket or a jet or planes, trains, and automobiles beyond, maybe an hour commute, that's probably a super commute. And it's a really interesting question where some folks have kind of gotten caught in a rock and a hard place between the great job and then now being further geographically in terms of where they live. And so fascinating issues that managers are dealing with and HR pros are dealing with, kind of reorienting and re-engaging what's a reasonable commute and how often do you really need your people physically in the office, kind of things. So there you go. But I mean, let's face it, if you're going to take a new job, make them put a private jet in there anyway, regardless, or a helicopter. So those are a few that I think are especially telling for the days and times that we live in right now. And so I hope you enjoyed that. Absolutely feel free to give me some comments here, some ideas. If you liked this, absolutely feel free to buzz over to my LinkedIn profile or Medium. No paywalls or anything like that, and read through that. If I missed some really obvious ones, let me know. If you think there's some that really are a sign of the times we live in, let me know. My plan is probably to update this a little bit later this year. Who knows, I might even do a 2025 version next year. So this was year one, first year I did this. And there are lots of citations in that article, and you'll see some good definitions from like the Harvard Business Review or MIT that really do give you some kind of serious definitions of some of those phrases, that kind of thing. But as usual, my series cites to a whole bunch of different articles. And if you'd like to reach out to me, feel free. There you go. That's my main office number, the email address, and then essentially all those websites lead directly to me and the main website there. So thank you very much. Appreciate you listening, and feel free to share, like, subscribe, and do all the social media riz. I appreciate that very much. So have a great one. Enjoy the rest of your day and or evening.